The first thing that caught Commander Yulix's attention was the teeth. Rows of them, white and sharp, glinting in the shuttle bay lights as the creature sat obediently at the boots of the human male. Didn't snarl, didn't growl. It only stared, unblinking and still. "That," Yulix said, voice low and slightly distorted through the translator, "is a predator." The human, tall and broad-shouldered with windburned cheeks and a noticeable limp, scratched casually behind the creature's ears. "This is Fawn. He's a good boy." Yulix's upper eye twitched. "Good boy." The human nodded. "Yeah." "Loyal, brave. Saved my life more than once." Yulix's upper arms folded across its chest while the lower ones tapped a command into the scanner. The device beeped. Species, Canis lupus. Earth origin. Subspecies, gray wolf. Gray wolf, Yulix repeated slowly. A wild predator used historically by your people for hunting and warfare. Used to be wild, the man replied. Domesticated over thousands of years. Then's not a wild wolf. He's third-generation companion. Trained, vaccinated, and socialized. Yulix turned and gestured toward the side deck where the rest of the medical team waited, their eyes locked on the wolf like it might combust. Behind them, the docking bay bustled with crews unloading crates of Terran supplies. Yulix stepped closer to the human. Name: Nalin Trent. Earth Liaison, Gamma Rotation. Brought for the environmental integration trials. Yulix's central eye blinked. You brought a predator for medical trials? Companion animal studies, Nalin clarified. You requested data on human-animal therapeutic bonds. We submitted a full proposal. He patted Finn's flank. The wolf exhaled deeply and lay down, head resting on his paws. We assumed, Yulix said, you would bring a domesticated species. A small one. A calming one. A cat. Nalin grinned, but the expression faded quickly when he noticed the cluster of armed guards stepping into view. You're not going to quarantine him, are you? He's a security risk, Yulix said. Nalin stepped in front of her. If you try to separate us, he'll become a security problem. Finn's ears twitched, but he didn't move. Yulix looked between the two. What bond exists that he would defend you violently? He was raised beside me, Nalin said. I helped him survive parvovirus, a bear attack, and a house fire. He helped me survive 2 deployment tours and a crash on Vexus Minor. He doesn't understand orders from strangers. He understands danger. Yulix made a sound halfway between a sigh and a whistle. He will be contained. Observed. No off-deck excursions. If he becomes hostile, I'll take him back to the shuttle myself. Yulix gave a short nod and turned. Follow me. He stays leashed. As they walked through the corridor, Nalin kept his voice low. You know, if you give him time, he'll surprise you. I am already surprised, Yulix said, that your kind calls this beast a friend. The medical wing had been sterilized for interspecies trials, and the moment Finn padded through the doors, the technicians scattered like a flock of startled birds. One ducked behind a console, another climbed onto a table. Great start, Nalin muttered. Yulix stood near the central scanner, arms behind its back. He will be examined. Full body scan? Yes. Finn stepped onto the scanner pad the moment Nalin pointed. The machine hummed to life, bathing him in blue light. Nalin kept a hand on his back, murmuring softly. The scan concluded, and the results blinked onto the central display. Yulix leaned in. Heart rate elevated. He doesn't like confined spaces, Nalin said. Reminds him of the vet. That is precisely what this wing is. I know. He's being very brave right now. Yulix turned, watching Fawn's slow exhale. You claim he is an emotional support organism. Not just that. He senses cortisol spikes, can detect seizures before they happen, and even wakes me during nightmares. Yulix stared at him. You are military? Was. I left active duty 5 years ago. PTSD still lingers. Yulix nodded once. Understood. The technician, a thin green-skinned alien named Kalair, approached cautiously with a vibroprobe and extended it toward Finn's shoulder. Finn didn't growl. He simply turned his head and stared. Kalea froze, sweat beading along his brow ridge. Maybe let me do that, Nalin said, taking the probe. He's fine with me touching him. Yulix observed silently as Nalin checked the joints and vitals with practiced ease. You are not a veterinarian, Yulix said. No, but I had to learn. Got bit bad by a Vrel snake on Altus Prime. No vet in range. I did what I could, kept him alive till help came. Why risk so much for an animal? He would have done the same for me. Yulix looked back at the scan. There are bone fractures in his hind leg. Old injury. He fell on ice when he was a pup. He limps in the cold. You could have replaced him with a healthier specimen. He's not replaceable. Yulix studied Nalin's face for a moment, then turned away. 3 days into the trial, an incident occurred on Deck 4. A containment breach. One of the Zarnian cargo drones malfunctioned, releasing a swarm of defensive microbots that sliced through insulation and triggered a fire suppression system. The crew scattered. One technician was trapped under debris, unconscious and bleeding. Nalin had just finished Finn's nutritional scan when the alert blared. Deck 4, Yulix said. Containment breach. Emergency crews dispatched. I'm going, Nalin said, already clipping on his comm. You are not cleared for. Fun can smell blood. He can find the injured faster than your drones. Yulix hesitated, then followed as Nalin and Fun ran for the lift. The corridor outside Deck 4 was thick with smoke and the hiss of extinguishers. Fun's ears twitched. His nose lifted. He darted left, then right, then stopped beside a collapsed support beam. There, Nalin pointed. The beam groaned as crew members tried to lift it. Nalin dropped to his knees, crawling under with Fun beside him. The technician, a young Sarek, had a gash across his arm and a crushed leg. He was barely breathing. He's alive, Nalin shouted. We need medics. Fun lay beside the Sarek, whining low and steady, refusing to move until help arrived. Later, as doctors wheeled the technician away and repair crews cleared the debris, Yulix stood beside Nalin. He located the injured in under 15 seconds. He's good at what he does. You risked your own life. So did he. Yulix looked down at Fun, who sat panting quietly. Perhaps he is not a simple predator. No, Nalin said. He's family. Over the next week, tension softened. The technicians stopped flinching when Fur entered. One even offered him a strip of dried meat, which he accepted with a lick and a tail thump. Yulix observed everything, recording behavioral responses and noting the physiological changes in the humans around Fun. Lowered heart rates, reduced stress indicators. But the peace didn't last. An off-world ambassador arrived unannounced. Tall, scaled, and notoriously xenophobic, Ambassador Dreikel of the Vrun Collective took one look at Fun and froze. That, Dreikel said, voice sharp, is a predator. He's a trained companion, Yulix said. You allow this beast to roam your medical wing? Nalin stepped forward. He's under control. Remove it or I leave. Yulix looked between them. Ambassador, I assure you I will not share a station with a creature that once hunted sapients. Fun isn't. Dreikel's voice rose. Remove it. Fun, sensing the tension, stood and placed himself between Nalin and the ambassador. Dreikel's claws twitched. It threatens me. Nalin raised both hands. He's just being protective. Step back and he'll sit down. You presume to give me orders? I'm trying to avoid a conflict. Yulix stepped forward. Enough. Ambassador, the wolf will be secured in the observation chamber during your visit. That is final. Dreikel sneered and turned on his heel. Later, Yulix entered the observation room, where Fun sat quietly behind a transparent barrier. Nalin leaned against the wall, arms crossed. I told you he'd scare people, Nalin said. Yulix studied Fun. He did not act aggressively, only protectively. Same thing sometimes. Ambassador Dreikel is influential. If he demands the creature be removed permanently, he'll have to go through me. Yulix looked at Nalin for a long moment. You would leave. I didn't come here without him. I'm not leaving without him. Yulix's gaze shifted to Fun, then back. Perhaps it is time the galaxy understood the difference between a predator and a protector. The next morning began with a shrill alert that rattled the overhead lights and sent a pulse through the station's reinforced walls. Nalin jerked upright in the dim quarters he shared with Fawn, who was already on his paws, hackles raised and ears forward. Outside, in the corridor, boots and claws pounded in both directions. Fawn didn't bark. He never did. He just moved to the door and waited, tail rigid. Nalin yanked on his uniform jacket and tapped the comm embedded in his wrist. "What's going on?" A clipped voice answered. "Containment breach. Biohazard lab." He was already moving. By the time he reached the lab level, the corridor was sealed off with a transparent barrier, tinged orange with a caution shimmer. 2 Shivari guards in full containment suits stood outside, weapons held low but ready. A third figure leaned against the wall nearby K-Layer, the technician who had once tried to scan Fawn with trembling hands. Now he looked worse, his skin pallid and damp with sweat. His breathing came in short, shallow gasps. "He was in there?" Nalin asked, nodding toward the sealed door. K-Layer's eyes darted toward him. The centrifuge malfunctioned. Spore samples went airborne. The seal held, but I was exposed before the lockdown triggered. Nalin looked through the barrier. The lab beyond was dim, lit only by emergency strips. A fine cloud hung in the air, barely visible but unmistakably dangerous. "Where's the quarantine team?" "5 minutes out," said one of the guards. "He's stable for now." Kalea slumped to the floor, back to the wall. He scratched absently at his arm, then froze, staring down. Blotches. They were faint, but spreading. Nalin crouched beside him. "You allergic to anything?" "No. Not like this. It burns. It's not in the briefings. Then it's not behaving like it should." Nalin looked at the guards. "I need a med kit. You're not authorized." "I'm not asking for permission." They hesitated, then tossed a sealed kit his way. Behind him, Finn sat calmly, watching K-Layer with a quiet intensity. Nalin opened the kit and pulled out a dermal scanner. "Heart rates elevated, but not critical. We need to flush the skin. You have saline." One of the guards handed over a pressurized bottle. Nalin sprayed K-Layer's arm, watching the blotches fade slightly, then reappear. "Whatever this is, it's systemic now." "I can walk," K-Layer whispered. "I just need air." "You need more than that." Nalin stood. "We're taking him to Med Unit 4. Finn stays close." The guards didn't argue. They moved fast, taking a side corridor that bypassed the contaminated sector. K-Layer was fading by the time they reached the lift. His speech slurred. Finn nudged his side once, then again, more firmly. "He's alerting," Nalin said. "Get him on a gurney." Inside the medical bay, a team of Vishari medics descended like a storm, their long fingers moving with practiced speed. Nalin stepped back, letting them take over. Finn didn't move from his spot beside the wall, eyes locked on K-Layer. Yulix entered moments later, her outer garment dusted with chemical residue. "Status? Possible spore infection. Doesn't match any known strain." He was exposed for under a minute, but it's aggressive. Yulix looked at the monitors, then at Finn. "And the wolf?" "Never entered the lab. No symptoms. But he reacted before Kalea collapsed. Might have picked up something our scanners haven't." Yulix considered that. "You trust his instincts." "I trust his track record. My people have begun to trust it too," Yulix admitted. "But biological intuition is not a method we are trained to document." "Then maybe it's time to start." Kalea stabilized after 2 hours of treatment. The spores were identified as a mutated variant of a dormant strain previously deemed inert for interspecies environments. A biologist on the communications feed called it a statistical freak occurrence, but Nalin knew better. The station was pushing boundaries. Mistakes weren't rare, they were inevitable. Later that cycle, Yulix found Nalin in the observation deck, staring out at the gas giant the station orbited. Finn lay beside him, chewing calmly on a synthetic bone provided by a brave quartermaster who had stopped flinching 2 days ago. "You were not assigned to biohazard response," Yulix said. I wasn't assigned to a lot of things I've done here. You act without protocol. Because waiting for permission gets people hurt. Yulix watched Fawn for a moment. Your wolf has not once disobeyed a command, yet you ignore half of ours. He follows instinct. I follow experience. That is a dangerous philosophy in a controlled environment. It's the only reason I survived the Vrel Gorge ambush. And the only reason Kayleigh are still breathing. Yulix didn't argue, just turned her gaze back to the stars. The ambassador is leaving tomorrow. Nalin raised an eyebrow. Voluntarily? With a formal protest. He considers the presence of your companion a breach of interspecies safety protocols. And you. I consider him narrow of mind and overly fond of his own voice. Nalin laughed. You're warming up to us. I have questions I cannot answer. That unsettles me. Welcome to being human. Yulix tilted her head. You form bonds with creatures that once saw you as food. You heal them. Trust them. Share your homes. We adapted together. That's the difference. We didn't just tame them. We learned from them too. There is a word in my language, Yulix said. That means those who change with the storm. I believe it applies to your species. Storms are kind of our thing. Yulix nodded once. I have authorized a joint study between your veterinary corps and our behavioral sciences unit. Fawn will be observed during both emergency drills and routine operations. Nalin blinked. You're putting him on the roster? Provisionally. Under my supervision. Fawn looked up at the sound of his name and wagged his tail once. Yulix added he will be issued a clearance badge. Nalin grinned. Make sure it's laminated. He drools on everything. There is one more matter, Yulix said. The Corellans have requested a demonstration of your canine rescue protocols during the next summit. It seems word of Fawn's intervention has spread. You want him to perform? I want them to understand what we failed to. That loyalty can be engineered not through force, but through trust. I'll start working on a plan. Good. And Nalin? Yeah. Teach him not to chase the cleaning drones during mealtimes. The nutrition staff are on the verge of mutiny. I'll do my best, but no promises. Fawn yawned, stretched, then patted over and rested his head on Nalin's foot. Yulix watched them for a moment longer, her expression unreadable. Then she said, perhaps the ambassador feared the wrong predator. By midday, the hydroponics wings smelled like singed algae and broken pride. Fawn stood calmly in the middle of the chaos, his tail still, ears forward, and a single glop of green matter clinging to his snout. Around him, a half-dozen Vishari horticulturists flailed around the remains of an overturned nutrient cart, hydro lines hissing where they'd been chewed through by a curious maintenance drone that had panicked when its scanner malfunctioned. The drone now sat motionless in the corner, half melted from a misfire in its own failsafe. Nalin bent down beside the wolf, brushing algae off his thick ruff. You didn't touch the drone, did you? Fawn blinked slowly. A horticulturist with pale blue skin and a wilted leaf-patterned sash stormed up, waving a data slate coated in slime. He triggered the sprinklers. He barked once. That bark set off 3 alarm nodes and collapsed a tray of mycelium cultures we've been nurturing for 12 cycles. I'm sorry about the mushrooms, Nalin said, but he was alerting. That drone had a cracked coolant line. You trained him to scream at robots? He doesn't scream, Nalin said. He warns. And for the record, you're lucky the coolant didn't ignite. It reacts poorly to iron traces in the soil base. The horticulturist opened his mouth, then paused. How did you know that? I read the safety sheet. Page 5. You read our documentation? Only the parts that sounded dangerous. Yulix arrived moments later, her limbs neatly folded behind her as she surveyed the scene. Explain. Nalin scratched behind Fawn's ear. Drone panicked. Fawn barked. Sprinklers freaked out. No casualties. Mildly annoyed lettuce. Yulix turned to the horticulturist. Is the crop salvageable? He held up a dripping tray. The red moss is drowned. The rest will recover. Then the incident is logged as a near miss. No disciplinary action. The horticulturist looked ready to argue, thought better of it, and sloshed away. Yulix looked at Fun. You said he detects distress. And coolant. Is that new? No. But it's the first time he's had to point it out in a room full of salad. His interventions are becoming disruptive. They're becoming necessary. Yulix's lower arms unfolded, tapping her tablet. You've requested a behavioral evaluation. Not for him, Nalin said, rising. For the staff. Some of them still flinch when he walks past. He's been cleared for all decks. That doesn't mean everyone read the memo. Yulix looked around the flooded hydroponics lab. It's difficult to convince others of safety when the creature is frequently in the center of chaos. He doesn't cause it, Nalin said. He notices it faster than anyone else. Yulix watched Finn sniff the remains of a compost bin, then sneeze violently. He lacks subtlety. So do half your engineers. She paused. Point conceded. 2 days later, the reevaluation trial began. Yulix organized a live demonstration in the emergency drill chamber, a space usually reserved for disaster simulations and species acclimatization tests. The chamber was massive, with modular walls that could be rearranged into labyrinths, mock habitats, or collapsed infrastructure. Today's setup mimicked a shuttle crash site. Twisted beams, simulated smoke, flickering lights. A half-dozen volunteers from different species lay scattered across the terrain, each with a unique set of injuries programmed into their biosuits. Nalin adjusted Finn's harness and checked the comm patch on his collar. You ready? Finn yawned once, then trotted to the staging line. Kalair, now fully recovered and unusually enthusiastic, stood beside Yulix. I adjusted the biosuit emitters. The vitals should relay to the display without interference. You've grown fond of the wolf, Yulix noted. He licked my face when I woke up, Kalair said. I've never been licked by a creature that wasn't trying to eat me. Yulix blinked. How reassuring. Nalin gave a sharp whistle. Finn lifted his head immediately. Begin, Yulix said. Finn moved fast, weaving through debris and over collapsed panels. The first volunteer, a Corellan with feigned unconsciousness and a simulated leg fracture, lay beneath a pile of foam-draped girders. Finn stopped, nose twitching, and gave a short bark. First down subject located, Kalair reported. Finn circled once, then bolted left without waiting for instructions. He's not waiting for you, Yulix said. He knows the routine. He alerts, then moves. I follow. The second volunteer, a Sarek with simulated internal bleeding, lay behind a heat-emitting panel. Finn hesitated, sniffed, then whined low and pawed at the base. He's identifying elevated temperature, Nalin said. Could be a power coupling leak. The scenario doesn't include that. Then your scenario's incomplete. Yulix studied the display. He's adapting without new input. He's improvising. The third subject, a run volunteer positioned beneath the collapsed duct, wasn't moving. Finn paused, ears rotating, then lay down beside the body and let out a long, low exhale. Nalin stopped walking. He's doing grief posture, Kalair said. The biosuit display blinked red. Sudden cardiac arrest. Simulated. He recognized it before the suit did, Yulix said. Nalin didn't respond. He walked over and knelt beside Finn, who nudged the volunteer's arm with his nose and then stood, eyes on Nalin. Good boy, Nalin whispered. After the last subject was located, the chamber lights returned to normal. Finn trotted to the exit, tail swaying. Yulix met them at the door. He completed the scenario in under 5 minutes. He missed nothing, Kalair added. There were no commands issued after initial deployment, Yulix noted. He doesn't need commands. He needs purpose. Kalair handed Finn a protein bar, which the wolf accepted delicately. Yulix closed her tablet. I will submit the observation. He meets all criteria. That mean he's cleared for full responder status? Nalin asked. Yulix hesitated. It means he will be treated as a functional member of the crew, not cargo, not experimental. A designation will be assigned. And the complaints? They will be addressed. Nalin crouched and unclipped Fun's harness. You hear that? You're officially part of the team. Fun licked his hand once and sat down. 3 days later, the crew gathered in the central atrium for the station's cycle end briefing. Yulix took the podium, flanked by department heads. Fun sat beside Nalin near the front, wearing a small badge clipped to his collar. It featured a stylized paw print and the station insignia, with the words, Rescue Unit Auxiliary. Yulix addressed the assembly. In the past weeks, we have evaluated the presence of a non-standard biological asset within our operational systems. We began with skepticism. We end with acknowledgement. She gestured toward Fun. This creature has prevented injuries, detected hazards, and demonstrated a level of situational awareness that surpasses some of our automated systems. He is not a pet. He is a partner. A ripple of approving murmurs passed through the crowd. Yulix continued. We do not often revise protocols based on singular cases. But when confronted with evidence that challenges our assumptions, we must adapt. Just as others have adapted to us. Fun sneezed. Laughter broke out. Yulix paused, the corners of her mouth twitching. His timing remains unpredictable. After the briefing, several technicians approached to offer Fun treats, reluctant at first, then more confident when he accepted them politely. Even the horticulturist from hydroponics offered a small pouch of dried berry crisps. My apologies, he said to Nalin. The mycelium recovered, and I've installed bark-resistant filters. Nalin clapped him on the shoulder. He'll still find something to trip over. I look forward to it. As the crowd dispersed, Yulix approached one last time. There will be no further restrictions, she said quietly. He goes where you go. He always has. You've changed the way we define safety. You just needed a new kind of alarm. Yulix looked down at Finn, who was now curled up with his badge nestled against his side. Not a predator, she said. A guardian. Nalin crouched and ran a hand through Finn's fur. Told you. He's just a good boy. And for once, no one disagreed.